Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky AF. This is Suz, and I'm joined here by my co-host Rob.
Hey everyone, hope you're keeping well.
So Rob, how are you feeling today?
I am good. I am happy that we're coming up to the end of the year, getting some time off for Christmas. I'm on day 2 of a hangover though, so I will do my best to be as reactionary as possible today. But I'm sorry if my brain just kind of is a bit foggy still.
No, it's grand. I'm also coming off, we've had a couple of intense weeks at work, and even though I'm not nursing a hangover, I feel like I'm nursing a brain hangover. So which is why I went for, December, so actually when you guys will be hearing this, it'll be January, but, we're recording this in December, and I always think of December as it's a little bit cozier. It's a time to be reflective and nostalgic about our childhoods, potentially, depending on your childhood. And so what I've decided to do today is a little bit, not strange, but a little bit different than what we've normally done. So, Rob, as you can attest, we normally go over some spooky legends or stories from the interwebs. But today, I'm actually going to give you some synopsi of a few Grimm's fairy tales that are lesser known but are absolutely buck wild.
Amazing. I'm so here for this, especially with the time of the year that it is. I'm ready.
Absolutely, because just to give you a little bit of background, we can dive right in. So Grimm's fairy tales was originally known as children and household tales, which is a pretty innocuous title for how fucking dark some of these are, which we'll get into. So it was obviously, it was a collection by the Grimm brothers, who were Jakob and Wilhelm, or Jacob and Wilhelm, however you want to pronounce. It was first published on December 20th, 1812, with 86 stories, and then by the 7th edition in 1857, it had expanded to about 200, along with 10 children's legends.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
I did not realize there was that many in there.
No, because you just think of the basic ones that kind of Disney picked up on. You think of Cinderella and Snow White, but that there's we'll go over some titles because some of them, just by the title, you're like, what the fuck?
I love how it's such a sleeper title for the book as well. It's so just kind of innocent, and then as soon as you get in, it's like how to summon a demon.
Yes, 100%. Or why you're a bad child and are going to hell immediately is basically the theme of all of these stories.
Good, now you're in here. Now you're going to get the real truth. You can't leave.
Yeah. You want to know why you don't want to go in the forest? Hell, you don't even want to stay at home. You're going to be eaten.
The child opens the book and all of a sudden, their eyes go behind their head pure white, yes, and just start speaking in some sort of ancient eldritch language.
And you start hearing this la da 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 in the background.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, so the book's actually the collection is listed by UNESCO actually in the Memory of World Registry. So yeah.
Good. We need to keep some spookiness in the memory of the world.
So I wanted to, before I launched, so basically what I did is I went through, I obviously didn't go through all 200 because I have a full-time job. So what I did...
I'm disappointed in you, Sis. You should have sat down and read all 200.
All 200. What I did was I went through and kind of did some contextual searching around ones that may be particularly more spooky according to people and all that, and then I just looked at some different titles of things and thought that looks interesting. But before I get into any of the ones, I want to get into some of the titles of the Grimm's fairy tales, because I think even though I'm not going to go over these, they're worth having in your lexicon. So there's The Girl Without Hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fairly on the head.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's just one called The Elves, which could be interesting.
Oh yeah.
The Devil and His Grandmother.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. I'm sure that's such an endearing tale.
Yep, exactly. And Gossip Wolf and the Fox. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there.
That's just, I imagine that as some sort of just office tale, of them hanging around the water cooler, just a wolf and a fox, and the wolf just being you're never gonna guess what happened last week.
And then the last one I wanted to mention is the Death of the Little Hen, which already sounds sad.
Oh, yeah, that's just sad.
Yeah, exactly. So those are a very brief overview of the titles of some of them, but there are 3 in particular that I want to go over. I'm not going to read them verbatim because that would be boring and nobody wants to hear my voice like that. So I'm just going to give them kind of synopsis. I'm going to run through what happens to them, and I just want to hear your reaction to some of the outlandishly creepy and dark shit that goes on in them. And I want us all to keep in mind that, remember, these are tales that are ostensibly being told to children. So these are...
Yeah, but these are being told to 19th century German children, though. These lads are made of hardier stuff.
Their lederhosen is not made of silk. It is.
Yeah, their lives are definitely not a fairy tale.
No.
So the Grimm brothers had to take a very different tone with them.
Yes, exactly. There were some very different dangers going on that they needed to warn these kids about. Firstly, some sources. So obviously, like a helpful Wikipedia page for context, but also D.L. Ashleman's folk texts, which is a library of folktales, folklore, fairy tales, and mythology. I think he also did the translation, and it's available, I believe, through the University of Pittsburgh. But it has basically all of the tales and their translations from, I believe that most of them are written in what's called Low German. These are obviously been translated in English because my German's terrible, and my Low German's probably even worse.
That's acceptable. I'll accept that.
So I want to start with tale 117, which is called The Willful Child. And it's actually only 2 paragraphs. It's a 2-paragraph story.
Nice. Okay.
So the first sentence is fantastic, so I will read it verbatim. Once upon a time, there was a child who was willful and did not do what his mother wanted. For this reason, God hated him and caused him to die. So that's the opener to our story.
I am so glad that is what you chose to open with.
I thought so. But here it actually gets pretty creepy in the second paragraph, in the second half of the story. So they lower the child into the grave and cover him with earth. But then the little arm suddenly came forth and grasped up, and it didn't help when they put it back in the earth. It kept reaching up straight into the air.
Okay. Keep going. I'll save my thoughts till the end.
Okay. So they didn't know what to do about this dead child's arm reaching up through the soil. So the mother herself realized it was her responsibility to take care of this. So she went to the grave and beat the little arm with a switch. And as soon as she had done that, it went back in the earth, and the child finally went to rest.
Oh, good God.
So that's the entire story of the willful child.
Oh my God. So we're in agreement. They just bury the child alive.
They 100% were like, you're being an asshole. We're going to put you in this casket.
I don't know why, but I just picture them having these like real thick like southern state of America sort of accents where like the child misbehaves and they're like, you're going in the pit.
But it also struck me, like, it struck me as so ridiculous, but it also struck me as so creepy about, like, them burying a child and then this arm just, like, shooting out of the ground and would not go back in.
The child being like, Mother, Father, please, don't bury me. I will be a good child.
I will no longer be an asshole.
Yeah, and the mother's like, well, better get the stick.
Yeah, so this mother just takes it upon herself to march down to a graveyard and be like, look, I'm sorry, Parson Brown. And she just beats the arm into submission.
Yeah, I told you, God hates you.
Yeah, basically. When I'm reading these, I want you to think of like under what context you're like telling a child these stories. Like, is this a bedtime story? Is this like what lesson is that trying to teach me?
Oh, this is a grandparent reading this story to a child. This is not a parent that reads this story to a child. This is a grandparent who gets to go home.
Yes, it was like, I'm gonna do some damage and then leave this house.
Yeah, yeah, and just remember, good little boys and girls don't get buried alive.
Yeah, you won't have to be beaten while in the ground.
Yeah, you'll just get a regular beating.
So that's The Willful Child, which I thought, like, what an incredible story.
That is a strong start, and I'm so glad you brought that into the world.
Right, and like all of these are the ones that I had never heard of, because I mean, if you think about it, like, you've heard of, obviously, like I said, the ones that Disney picked up on. So you have, like, Cinderella, which if you read the Grimm's version, everybody knows, like, the Grimm's version is the darker one. And, like, I think in Cinderella, her stepsisters, like, get their toes chopped off in order to fit into the glass slipper. And then their eyes are picked out by birds. And I think it's Snow White, the evil witch, has to dance in red hot iron slippers at Snow White's wedding, and like there's some dark shit in there that was definitely left out in their modern adaptations.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's some dark shit that we actually just can't talk about on the podcast. That's in those.
It would take us to a different rating.
Yeah.
So, okay, the next one I want to go to is called Fitcher's Bird. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay.
I'm glad that I haven't, because I can't wait to hear what's in store with this one.
And I have ordered these in like ascending levels of what the fuck. So this is our next tier of what the fuck.
Excellent. Is this ascending levels as in by the time we get to the end, my brain is just going to be soup?
By the time I get to the end of the last story, I have a feeling you're just gonna be dumbstruck. You're gonna be like, what the fuck was that thing you just talked about?
Fantastic. I was already like feeling my brain get to that point where I'm trying to process a child being buried alive, so I cannot wait to hear what's in store.
Okay, so grab your hot cocoa, kids. We're about to go through Fitcher's Bird. So this is tale 46, I believe. So this story is about a sorcerer who disguised himself as a poor man and went begging in the neighborhood of the town he was nearby. And what he did was he would capture beautiful girls and take them home to be his wives. So everyone in the town knew him, but no one knew where he took the girls, and none of them ever returned. So strong start.
They just went off to live a happy life somewhere. You know, I'm sure that's all it was.
You'll quickly find out why that wasn't the case. So, one day, the sorcerer came to the door of a man who had 3 beautiful daughters, and he appeared as a poor, weak beggar. So, the oldest of the daughter, and importantly, he carried like a wicker pack basket on his back. So, he asked the oldest daughter for a bit to eat, and she was a kind woman, so she came out and gave him a piece of bread. He simply touched her, and suddenly she was forced to jump into the basket on his back. Yeah. So,
get in my basket.
Basically. He hurried away with powerful strides and carried her to his house in the deep dark forest. So you're thinking, all right, she's got to already be dead, but you'd be surprised she's not. So she shows up. She gets out of the pack at the house. She emerges from the wicker basket, and he says, "Look at my house. You will like it here with me. You will have everything your heart desires." And in truth, the house was splendid. It had treasures and lots of food and was very well built. And so she was happy for a few days, even though she had been kidnapped from her home and her family and suddenly forced to marry a man that she did not know. But she was happy. After a few days, he said, "Look, I've got to go somewhere, and I'll leave you alone in the house for a bit. Here are the house keys. You can look in any room you want to, except for the one where this key opens." He goes, "If you look in there, you will die." And she's like, "Okay." But he also, when giving her this key, he also gave her an egg, a golden egg. He said, "Take good care of this egg. Carry it with you at all times, and if you lose it, great misfortune will befall upon you." So she was like, "Okay." So she took the keys and the egg, and she promised to take good care of everything. Unfortunately, because she is a curious little bird, as soon as he had gone out of the house, she wanted to search the house from top to bottom, which again was mostly fine as long as she didn't go into that one room. So all the rooms she went into glistened with silver and gold, and she had never seen such splendor in her life. Finally, she came to the door she wasn't supposed to open. And so she's still got the key and she's still got the egg in her hand, and she's about to open the forbidden door. She examined the key and she put it into the lock and opened the door. And what do you think she saw inside, Rob?
Just a party room. I'm sure this is exactly what I'm imagining was in this room, especially thinking of the Grimm brothers and what they write.
It's definitely a party of some sort. She sees in the middle of this room is a large basin filled with blood.
Nice.
And inside, like near the basin, lay the cut up bodies of dead girls, many of them. And then there was a wooden block with a glistening axe laying upon it. So she literally stumbles into a murder room.
Yeah, she found the kill room, basically.
Yes. So she was so terrified when she saw this that she dropped the egg, and the egg fell into the basin, so it was covered in blood. When she got it out again and wiped off the blood, it wouldn't come off the egg, so the egg was permanently dyed red.
She done goofed.
She done goofed.
There's no hiding that. So I
No.
hate when you drop your golden egg in blood.
Oh, I know, right? It pisses me off every time.
Yeah.
So she scrubbed and scrubbed. She couldn't get rid of the stain. So not long afterwards, her sorcerer kidnapper husband returned, and he immediately asks for the key and the egg, which she hands to him while she was shaking because she knows she's in deep shit. And he was like, so you went into the chamber against my will. And this is what he says, and now against your will, you shall go into it once again. Your life is finished.
Oh shit, that is some fuck.
Yeah.
That really changes the tone.
Oh yeah. He threw her down, dragged her by her hair, cut off her head on the block, and cut her up into pieces, and her blood flowed into the basin. Then he threw her next to the others. He then said, now I will go get the second sister.
Oh shit.
Because, like, this one didn't work out.
I just remembered, literally, as you were saying it, I was like, wait, didn't she have two other sisters?
Yep. So he dressed as a beggar again and went to their house. And naturally, being a kind girl as well, the second sister brought him bread and was forced into his pack.
Sorry, so, okay, yeah, no, keep going. I have a question at the end.
Okay, so she's taken to the forest, and the same thing happens again. He's like, look, I'm real chill, you're gonna like it here, there's lots of gold and silver, don't go in the room, here's an egg. And naturally, she went to the kill room, she saw it, she dropped the egg. He was like, fuck, now I gotta kill this one too. And so he did. And she paid with her life. So then he was like, well, there's one more left. So he went back to the house, dressed as a beggar, to get the third sister. And she, also being a good girl, gives him food, forced him in the pack, taken in the forest. He then gives her the test again. He says, here's the key and the egg. So she also, like, searches the house from top to bottom and then gets to the forbidden chamber. And she sees all the dead bodies, including her dear sisters who were lying in the basin. But she did not drop the egg. She carefully put the egg aside before she went searching through the house. So she put it on like a coffee table.
Smart, yeah.
You're right, yeah. So this one's clever. So she then proceeded to gather the parts of her sisters and place them back in order, as in put their bodies back together.
Okay.
When nothing else was missing from their bodies, the parts began to move. They became reanimate. They joined together, and the two girls opened their eyes and came back to life, because that's how that works.
What? So, okay, hang on. How fucked up do you have to be like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fish out their body parts and put them back together.
Yep.
Like, what has this girl seen in her life that's her first thought?
I feel like I know how to handle this. Yeah. So rejoicing, they kissed and hugged one another. The man returned home and demanded the keys and the egg. And he didn't see any blood on the egg. He was like, you have passed the test. You shall be my bride. And she was like, great, sounds wonderful. So apparently, though, he now had no more power over her and had to do whatever she demanded, because there was some kind of power switch going on by her passing that test.
Okay, fair.
So she said, this is gonna work for me. I like this.
She became the dom, basically.
Yes, she immediately became the dom. And she was like, look, I demand that you take a basket full of gold to my father and my mother. And you yourself must carry it there on your back. So meanwhile, I'll prep for the wedding here at the house. Okay. And he was like, all right, chill, whatever. So he went with the basket of gold. She ran to her sisters in the kill room and said, the moment is here, I can rescue you. So she put them both into another basket, because apparently baskets are just really important and also very large. Mm-hmm. Like, can you fit two sisters into a single basket?
Look, these are low German baskets, you know, these are
low German baskets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she hid them in a basket so they couldn't be seen. Then the sorcerer came back and she called him in and said, now carry this basket away, but you are not to stop and rest. Take care, for I shall be watching you through the little window. So she's saying, like, take this basket to my parents as well. And he was like, and as the dom now, the girl was, so the guy was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So he took it away with him. He sat down wanting to rest, but immediately one of the girls in the basket called out, I am looking through my little window and I can see that you are resting. Walk on. So she pretended to be her older sister magically watching the sorcerer stopping him from taking a rest. So I know the story, it has a climactic ending. So again, he thought this was his bride calling to him, so he got up and he was like, fuck, I gotta keep going. So he he went to sit down again, but again he heard a voice saying, "I can see you through the little window, and I can see that you're resting." So finally he brought the gold. He made it to the house with the pack of girls, the literal basket of girls. At home, the bride, so the third sister, was making preps for the wedding feast, which she had invited all the sorcerer's friends. She took a skull with grinning teeth, adorned it with jewelry and a wreath of flowers, and carried it to the attic window to let it look out. That was just put in there.
Okay. Yeah, as you do.
As like a rock and roll goth wedding, yeah, you do.
Yeah, it's the wedding skull. Everyone knows about that.
So when everything was ready, she dipped herself into a barrel of honey and cut open the bed and rolled around in it until she looked like a strange bird.
Oh, okay, amazing.
So this is either getting real weird or real kinky.
I can't make up my mind which one.
So she's covered in honey and bed feathers, and she says, and to her mind, no one would have been able to recognize her, and that's probably fair.
Yeah.
So underway, like when the wedding got underway, some of the guests met her and they asked, "You, Fitcher's bird, where are you coming from?" The girl who is adorned with feathers. Mm-hmm. And she said, "I'm coming from Fitcher's house." And he said, "What is his young bride doing there?" And she says, "She has swept the house from bottom to top, and now she's looking out of the attic window." So there's the reason for the skull.
Right.
So finally, the bridegroom, her new husband, comes back to the house, and he sees her, and he's like, "You, Fitcher's bird, where are you coming from?" And she says again, "I'm coming from Fitcher's house." She's looking out the top window, and the bridegroom looked up and sees the decorated skull. He thought it was his bride, and he waved a friendly greeting to her, to the skull adorned with flowers.
Of course.
And then after he and all his guests had gone into the house, and all the relatives of the sorcerer had arrived, the girl who was doused in honey and feathers closed up all the doors so that no one could escape, set it afire, and together all the family burned to death. The end. Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. I love a solid conclusion to a story as well. My only question is, if she can, reanimate the corpses of her sisters, why didn't she do it for the rest of the girls?
I see. Now that's a bit shitty of her, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I was left with so many questions. I was like, how did the parents not notice that their daughters were going missing after giving food to a beggar? Yeah,
that was my first question, actually.
Yeah. Also, was it not then alarming that he then brought them gold and then the two of the daughters back in a basket?
Look, this is a different time. Maybe we just we're too modern in our thinking. We're too 2023 focused. Getting baskets of gold. We're not
1823 focused.
Yeah. Maybe getting baskets of gold dropped off at your door was just a regular pastime in Germany at this point.
I just love that. Like the third sister was like, "All right, I'm the smart one. I can reanimate corpses. I can douse myself in honey, roll around in feathers, and then commit arson."
That, up to that point, that is some, Home Alone shit right there.
Yeah, up until burning everyone alive.
Yeah, then it takes a dark turn.
So that was Fitcher's bird, which I thought was just a really, Dexter-style, wrong kind of fairy tale.
Yeah. It's literally like Grimm's Home Alone.
Yes, Grimm's Home Alone, 100%. The three daughters lived in the end, so there's that.
That is, yeah, you know what, that's fair. The daughters did live. As shitty as it was for her to not do the same favor for the other girls, we'll give her a pass on that.
Well, unfortunately, what I'm thinking of now is maybe they were too decomposed.
That's also a possibility.
Which makes that whole scene even grosser.
Yeah, that's pretty grim.
God, you can tell we're near the end of the year and need a break.
my hangover-riddled brain was just like, you just made it funny right there, my friend.
Okay, so I'm going to do my last one, and it is by far the most buck-wild story I think I've ever read.
Okay, fair.
And I believe it's Tale 47. So this one is called The Juniper Tree, and it is honestly the most kind of alarming, dark story I think I've ever read, with some twists and turns that I don't think you'll see coming.
Brilliant. I'm here then. I'm just gonna I'm fully ready for this. I'm gonna listen, and I'm gonna keep my questions till the end.
I don't know if you are. I think you're gonna stop and be like, "What?"
Okay.
So it starts out with long ago, at least 2,000 years, which is a great start.
Fair.
So, at least 2,000 years ago, there was a rich man and a beautiful, pious wife, and they loved each other dearly, but they had no children, but she did very much wish to have one, so she prayed day and night. In front of the house, there was a juniper tree, and one day in winter, the woman was standing beneath it, peeling an apple, and apples are a very important part of the story, so keep that in mind. And while she was peeling the apple, she cut her finger, and some blood fell into the snow, which is already this is reminiscent of Snow White, because this is kind of how Snow White's mom wishes her into being. But she says, if only I had a child who was as white as snow and as red as blood. Which I'm thinking, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that's a bit... Okay.
Yeah. And as she said that, she became contented, and she felt sure it was going to happen. So she went into the house, and a month went by, and the snow was gone, and then 3 months went by, and then there were flowers, and some more months went by, and nature was, in all its splendor. And finally the 5th month passed, and she stood beneath the juniper tree, and smelled so sweet her heart jumped for joy. She fell on her knees and was beside herself. And then in the 6th month, the fruit that grew from the tree was thick and large, and then she became quite still. And after the 7th month, she picked the juniper berries and ate them. Then she grew sick and sorrowful. The 8th month passed, and she called to her husband and said, "If I die, bury me beneath the juniper tree." Then she was quite contented and happy until the next month was over, and suddenly she had a child, as white as snow and as red as blood. And when she saw it, she was so happy she died.
Yep, that's how it happens.
Yep, that is the natural rate of childbirth.
Yep.
So her husband, bowing to her wishes, buries her beneath the juniper tree, and is very, very sad. But as time went on, he was like, "All right, I should look for another wife for my son and myself." So he then took a second wife and had a daughter by the second wife. So now he's got a little boy and a little girl. The first wife's child was the son, and he was as red as blood and as white as snow. And again, they keep mentioning this, but it plays no part in the rest of the story. They just keep saying he was as red as blood and as white as snow.
It's a bit kind of, uncomfortable, but okay.
Yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable. But the second wife loved her daughter very much, but she hated her stepson. She thought he would always stand in her way and would get the inheritance, would take the inheritance away from her daughter. She's called in the story the evil one. So she filled her daughter's mind with this. The evil one is she says an evil one spoke to her in her mind, spoke to the stepmom.
Right.
So until she grew very angry with the little boy, and she would push him and slap him, and the poor child was always afraid. So one day the stepmom went upstairs, and her daughter came home up too, and she said, "Mom, give me an apple." And the woman said, "Yes, my child." And she had a big trunk of apples, and I say trunk because it was a trunk. She had a trunk of beautiful apples that had a large heavy lid and a sharp iron lock on it. So the little girl says, "As you do, that's where I keep all my apples."
Gotta keep your apples safe, yeah.
Absolutely. And she said, she basically said, "Mom, can my brother have an apple too?" And this made the woman mad, but she said, "Oh, yeah, fine, when he comes home from school." So the evil one came over her as the little boy came to school. And she grabbed the apple and took it away from her daughter and said, "No, you shall not have an apple before your brother." So the little girl left the room, and the little boy came into the room once he came home from school. And she said, "My son, do you want an apple?" And he goes, "Mother, how angry you look. But yes, I would like an apple." Which I thought was a great, moment of you're looking a little murderous, but yeah, I am a bit peckish. So she said, "Come with me." She said, "Take an apple out for yourself." And while he leaned over the trunk, she slammed the lid down, and his head flew off, falling among the red apples.
Oh.
So she's just decapitated a child. So then fear overcame her, and she thought, "I can find a way out of this." So she went upstairs. Yeah, literally, "I can find a way out of this." So she went upstairs and got a white scarf out of her drawers, and set the head back on the neck of the son and tied the scarf around it so that the gaping maw couldn't be seen. Then she set the body on a chair in front of the front door and put the apple in the boy's hand. So after this...
She weekend at Bernie's him.
Yes, she weekend at Bernie's her stepson.
Yeah.
I can just picture 2,000 years ago her putting some shades on him.
Tying strings to his arms and everything.
So after this, the daughter came into the kitchen and said, "Mom, Mother, brother is sitting by the door and he's really, really pale and he has an apple in his hand." She said, "I asked him to give me the apple and he didn't answer and I was very scared." And so the mother said, "Oh, go back to him. If he won't give you the answer, then hit him upside the head." So
fucking what?
Yeah. So the girl went to the dead little boy and said, "Brother, give me the apple." But he was silent. So she boxed his ears and his head fell off. And the little girl was horrified, naturally, and began crying and screaming. She ran to her mother and said, "Mom, I've knocked my brother's head off." And she cried and could not be comforted.
What the fuck?
So the mother said, "Well, what have you done?"
Oh my god.
She said, "Be quiet and don't let anyone know. It can't be helped now. Don't worry, we'll cook him into stew." So she let her daughter believe that she smacked her brother so hard his head flew off, and then suggested that they cook him.
What the actual fuck?
Oh yeah, just hang on. It gets better. So the mother took the little boy and chopped him into pieces and put him in the stew. So the daughter stood by crying, and all her tears, so many of her tears fell into the pot they didn't need to add salt.
Such an unnecessary addition.
Such a dark, unnecessary addition. So the father came home, and he sat down and said, "Where is my son?" And the mother served up the large dish of stew, and the daughter still cried and could not stop crying. Again he asked, "Where is my son?" And the mother said, "Oh, he's gone across the country to his mother's great uncle. He'll be there a while." And the father asked, "What's he doing there? He didn't even say goodbye to me." And she said, "Oh, he wanted to go, and he asked me if he could stay for 6 weeks. He'll be well and be taken care of." And the man said, "I'm unhappy. This isn't right. He should have said goodbye, but oh well." And then he asked his daughter, "Why are you crying? Your brother will come back." And then he started to eat. And he said, "Wife, this food is delicious. Give me some more." So he ate some more. And then he said he ate so much, he said, "You two shall have none of it. It's so delicious. It's all mine." And he ate and ate, throwing all the bones in the stew under the table until he had finished it all. So he's eating a stew with human bones in it that he is ignoring and throwing under the table.
Okay.
So, and it just gets weirder. Just wait. So the daughter went to her chest of drawers and took out her best silk scarf and gathered all the bones from under the table because she was still crying and felt very bad about her presumably having killed her brother. So she tied up all the bones and carried them outside, crying tears of blood. At some point she ran out of regular sort of saline tears and started crying blood.
Switched over to blood. Okay.
Yep. So you can just imagine a little girl crying tears of blood carrying a scarf full of bones. Like that's horrific.
Yeah.
She laid them down beneath the juniper tree, and after she put them there, she suddenly felt better and didn't cry anymore. So
because she got rid of the evidence.
Evidence, yes. So the juniper tree then began to move. The branches swayed and moved apart, and at the same time a mist rose from the tree, and at the center of this mist it burned like fire, and a beautiful bird flew out of the fire singing magnificently. And when it was gone, the juniper tree was just as it had been before, but the cloth with the bones was no longer there. And the sister was happy and contented as if her brother was still alive, and she went merrily into the house, sat down at the table, and ate some of the stew.
Oh, fuck off.
So, okay, but here's where it starts to get really weird. So, the bird flew away, and it flew to a goldsmith's house, and it began to sing, and I'm actually going to recite the song in full, because it's worth saying. It says, "My mother, she killed me, my father, he ate me, my sister Marlene gathered all my bones, tied them in a silken scarf, laid them beneath the juniper tree, tweet, tweet, what a beautiful bird I am." So yeah, that he's singing. He's singing as a bird now.
Okay, so right, so he became a furry. This is what it is. Yeah.
Yes. So the goldsmith that the bird had flown over to was sitting in his workshop, and he thought the bird sounded so beautiful. He went up to ask him to sing again, and the bird said, "No, I don't sing twice for nothing." He said, "Give me the golden chain, and I'll sing for you again." So the goldsmith's like, okay. So he gave him a golden chain. The bird put it in his right claw and went and sat in front of the goldsmith and then sang the song again. At this point, he then flew to a shoemaker and sang the song again. The shoemaker ran out and said, "Oh, how beautifully you can sing. Please sing to me again." And again, the bird said, "No, look, fucker, I'm not singing without payment." So he said, "Give me a pair of shoes." So the shoemaker was like, "Okay." So he went up and grabbed a red pair of shoes, and the bird took them in his left claw and flew away.
Give me some of that drip.
Like, I can just imagine a bird flying with, like, pumped up Nikes or something.
And some, like, Mr. T style giant gold necklace on them as well.
So he went and flew away, and then finally he flew in front of a mill, and he sang to all 20 workers in the mill. And all of them stopped and said, oh, how beautifully you sing, let us hear it again. And again, the bird said, I don't do something for nothing. So he said, I want the millstone. And the people in the mill were like, well, technically the mill doesn't belong to us, we just work here, but your song was so beautiful, we'll go ahead and give it to you. So at this moment I was like, how dare he like push crimes upon the proletariat.
Yeah, this bird knows what he's doing.
But so they then took the millstone and placed it around the bird's neck, and he then flew away. So he's got a millstone around his neck, a pair of red shoes, and a gold chain. And all the while he's singing this song about his mother killing him and tweet tweet what a beautiful bird he is. So he then, with all these items, flew back to his father's house. And the father said, after eating the meal that was made of his son, said, I feel so contented, I am so happy. But the mother said, I feel uneasy, as if a bad storm were coming. At that moment, the bird flew up and began to sing. And the man said, oh, what a beautiful song that bird is singing. And the woman said, no, not I. And she plugged her ears. She just couldn't stand to hear it. And so the bird seated itself on the juniper tree and began to sing again. Like I said, the mother fell to the floor and would not listen. And there was a roaring in her ears like the fiercest storm. So the father said, oh, but its song is so beautiful, I will go outside. And he went outside, and the bird dropped the golden chain and it fell around his father's neck. So the man went in and said, look what the beautiful bird gave me. He sings and he gave me a gold necklace. And so the sister, who was still sad about her brother being dead, also thought, I'm going to go out and listen to the beautiful bird sing and see what he gives me. So he went out and the bird drops the pair of shoes. And she goes, oh, look, I now have this beautiful pair of red shoes. So she went in and she was contented and happy, and she put on the red shoes and she danced around the house. And the woman said, no, I will not go. I feel as if the world were coming to an end. But finally she was forced to go out the door and crash. The bird threw the millstone on her head and crushed her skull into the earth. So the father and the daughter heard the tragedy, went out and saw the mother having been smushed into the earth. Smoke, flames, and fire were rising from all over the place. I don't know where that's from, but apparently it was something caught fire. And when it was over, the little brother was standing there again in his body. He took his father and his sister by the hand, and all three were very happy. They went into the house, sat down at the table, and ate. The end. That silence is confusing me.
You've truly just shattered my brain there.
So, yeah, I know it's not like our normal spooky fare, but I just thought those were so dark and weird and kind of delightfully violent that I wanted to go over them.
That last one, like, you did not undersell that in any way.
Oh, I know.
Like, you... As
I was reading it, my husband was playing The Legend of Zelda, and I just kept looking up like, what the fuck am I reading? What the fuck am I reading? Like...
Yeah, you're on a watch
list
now.
Yeah, basically. Because I didn't realize, because I knew the Grimm's fairy tales were dark, but having read some of these, I didn't realize to the extent of like the amount of cannibalism that was going on in them.
Yeah, okay. So at the end when they went back in and ate, did they continue eating the stew? Like, did the boy just eat himself?
That's what I'm wondering. I was like, is there auto-cannibalism going on in this place?
But I'm also just imagining, like, the dad is just completely ignorant of the bones. At one point, was he, like, so distracted that he didn't notice the skull just, like, float up comically up to the top of his bowl?
Well, that's what I kept thinking, because I'm like, because at first I was like, all right, they made him into a stew. Okay, like, yeah, humans supposed to taste like pork. Fair enough, I guess. But then when they were like, and he threw the bones under the table, I'm like, at what point do you pull out a femur and think, damn, like, my wife really didn't pay attention to cleaning the cow?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yes.
I also, the fact that, like, the girl, she provided the seasoning.
Yes.
Because also it's old Germany, so the only seasoning you need is salt.
Oh yeah, that's all you got.
Yeah. So she brought the salt.
But then she started crying tears of blood, and she kept being like, I'm really, really sad, but now I feel better. And like, now that I've gotten rid of the evidence.
Yeah, that's just some like, I genuinely, like, if those two lads were still alive today and writing those stories, they would actually be like, the people would be asking them to go see someone.
Oh yeah. Well, to me, the moment that got me the most was when the mother asked the daughter to basically beat up her brother. And when she did, and the head fell off, and then she was like, well, look what you did.
Yeah, in some, like, anime style, like, character arc, she punched him so hard she knocked his head off.
And then, like, this, I can imagine this, like, 7-year-old daughter horrified that she just was, like, holding the head of her brother, and her mom's like, well, look what you fucking did. Like, this is your fault now.
The mother with her, like, The mother with her arms crossed, standing there being like, yeah, you real fucked up this time, didn't you, 7-year-old
Guess we're
child?
gonna have to eat him.
Also, just imagine if the girl, like, in future where she, like, really sits down to think about it, and she's like, she was suspiciously quick with thinking about eating him. Like, there was no hesitation there. It was like, oh, you killed him? Well, guess we're eating him.
Right, because of all the ways you could dispose of a body. And then she's like, yeah, no, we'll eat him. That's great.
Yeah, we'll eat him, but don't worry about the bones. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Which makes me think, like, did she even cut him up, or was there just, like, this whole human body in a stew?
Well, to be fair, we already established from the previous story that they have baskets that can take fully sized humans, so I think a pot that could take a child is probably, it's acceptable.
True, yeah, so we've got baskets of girls and pots full of little boys.
Yeah, just boiling away.
Oh, God. So, yeah, that's my quick foray into Grimm's fairy tales. I know I didn't want to make this like an academic podcast about like the history of the fairy tales and like the archetypes they fit into. I just wanted to talk about how they were chopping heads off and basins of blood and eating people.
And I'm eternally grateful for you sharing this with me.
So now you can go forth I just think like it's a good thing I don't want kids, because I would 100% tell them these stories.
Yeah, 100%. That's that's like a book of trauma right there.
Oh, absolutely. Like, no wonder kids didn't want to go into the Black Forest. Like, I'm afraid my sister's going to punch me so hard my head will go off.
Can you imagine the childhood that those two lads had? That's what they came up with.
I did read that they were 2 of 10 siblings, and that they're...
That tells you everything you need to know.
So you know that, like, a couple of those siblings were, like, telling them fucked up stories.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Growing up in 18th century Germany.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that's my holiday foray into the Grimm's fairy tales.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think this episode may be potentially my favorite episode we've done to date.
I'm glad. I was hoping it would work out.
Oh, it did.
It was fun to talk about.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I'm genuinely, like, just stumped. My brain is just trying to make sense of everything I've just heard.
I can only imagine being on the second day of a hangover and trying to process the juniper tree.
Oh, thank Christ it's not the day of the hangover. At least I'm, like, mostly recovered now.
Yeah.
If you had said this to me yesterday, I think my own head would have fallen off.
So you never know. We could, like I said, there are like upwards of 200 stories. So like maybe in the future we can find some other like ones worth diving into. If people like this episode, we can kind of delve into a few other ones, because they are definitely spooky and weird and wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I would love to hear more of this. So I'm fully on board for revisiting the Grimm boys.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I guess that's us for this. Will be one of our first episodes in the new year. So Happy New Year to all of you. And we're gonna take a brief break, and then we're gonna dive into another episode. So we'll see you guys. For you, will be a following week, but for us, will be about 3 minutes.
Yep. Amazing.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Take it easy, guys. Bye.